and welcome to the Little Minds Big Ideas podcast with the Early Years Network, the podcast where we are talking all things early years from inside and outside our wonderful industry. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Ruth Brennan, who is going to talk to us all about her role as an early years lead and teacher in a primary school, and thought it would be really interesting to highlight the different expectations and judgments that are made when you have a 3-year-old daughter. You're also working in the industry, and kind of what it is like as mum and teacher in your two different worlds. So firstly, hello and welcome to the podcast.
Hiya, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to sort of diving into mum and teacher life. So to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the role that you play within the primary school?
Yeah, so I am a deputy head in a primary school, but my main, I would say my main role, but that's not so deputy head's main role. But I am early years teacher and lead of early years across the school as well. So it's really, and I really have a passion for teaching the other members of staff in the school the importance of play, talk, exploration, curiosity, those kind of key fundamental areas in early years that sometimes get forgotten higher up the school, and actually is so important. Doesn't matter what age they are, actually if they can't do those fundamental skills at a young age, that's the building blocks for everyone else. So I've got a real kind of push for curriculum and early years, and yeah, that's basically it.
Actually, so how do you find juggling being a working mum, especially as your role, like you say, it's so big, it's so demanding? You're wearing your deputy hat, your early years hat, building that curriculum. How do you kind of juggle everything?
It's really hard work, I'm not going to lie. Working in early years with with my little girl Ruby, with such a similar age, is really draining physically and emotionally. And I find sometimes when you've had a hard day at work, it's sometimes hard really to switch off or remember I'm mum now and not teacher. I have to talk to myself or remind myself to stay patient. I think patience sometimes is a bit tricky when I get home because I've had to stay patient and calm with everybody in school. And then I get home and then Ruby does one little thing and I'm like, why are you doing that? I'm like, that's not the way to deal with it. So I think sometimes I just need reminding of the difference between mum, Ruby, and teacher, and also not stressing out about my work when I'm with Ruby, and actually having that split time I think is really important. And I do have to tell myself that sometimes. Enough. Put your ideas in your head ready for tomorrow to the side. Yeah. It's all about family right now, and that's important. I try really hard to juggle it in the sense that, a bit like what you were saying in one of your other podcasts before about setting a list. What do I need to get done this week for work? When can I get it done? And also prioritise. And then if it's not done, nothing in education is ever done. You've always got a list.
The list is always growing.
all the time. And as long as you get your head around that and go, right, that's me done for tonight. I'm going to spend this time with Ruby, or this weekend I really try. Personally, everyone works different ways. Personally, I work solidly in the week. I've spent time before putting her to bed, but work late evenings to get. Yeah. But then weekends, family times, full stop. Unless something pressing comes, but really, really try hard to have that work-life balance and actually enjoy Ruby being at that age, because they grow.
It's such a fantastic age as well, isn't it? Yeah.
So much fun. And I get jealous sometimes that I don't see as much of Ruby in the day when she's learning all these things that I'm teaching the other children. And that wow moment as a teacher to go, they've got it, it's so good, they've clicked it. I don't get to see that with her because it's such a demanding job.
No, definitely. And I guess that leads me on to my next question a little bit. Do you ever find yourself crossing your home and work boundaries, becoming that teacher figure to Ruby when you're at home rather than mum when you're at home?
Completely. I sometimes, forget I'm actually at home, and I was like, oh, Mrs. Brennan, do this, Mrs. Brennan. She just looks at me and I was sorry, mummy, I'm mummy.
That's who I am now.
Yeah, which have I got on? It is really tricky. And also I think those boundaries of when you're looking after other people's children, you do look after them differently.
Yeah.
And the risk taking is a little bit, you've got more of a control, I guess.
Yeah.
And when it's with your little girl, I find sometimes my husband has to step in and go, no, it's okay. Because I'm like, no, they might hurt themselves or they might do this.
Yeah.
And actually I'm like, well, no, at school, I'd think about the risk. I'd think about dynamic risk and I'd let them do it if I knew it was safe. And I think sometimes somebody outside needs to say, it's okay.
It's going to be okay. Yeah, she's fine.
She's fine. So yeah, definitely boundaries are crossed. And I don't think you can help that.
No, I think it's whatever job you're in, isn't it? You step away from work, but it's with education being so demanding, you're constantly thinking about work. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And if you're with very similar age groups, you go home to Ruby, who's 3, and it just all kind of merges.
But then on a positive, it's really great because you think, oh, that worked really well in my class. You know what? I'm going to see what it's like with Ruby. Or test them out beforehand. Sometimes I go, oh, but let's try this activity. And she loves it. So I'm like, right, great. I can do it. Obviously, because it's slightly different ages, but use her as like a testing ground, which is really nice. And, borrowing those resources, the opportunities as well is always kind of handy for her.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously being in the school with lots of other children, how often do you find yourself comparing Ruby to other children? Do you kind of, oh, she does that, she doesn't do that, I'm glad she doesn't do that, or things like that?
Yeah. I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I'd like to think I wouldn't. I don't. But it's easier said than done. You just think, oh, hang on a minute, she can do that, but they can't. Or what's happened? Or vice versa. Oh, they can do that and she can't. But I think because understanding children, they all develop so differently and at so many different rates and things. It is really hard. And I try really hard to think, actually, they're completely different children. It's like comparing 2 children in the class, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're so different and they've got real strengths of certain areas and not in other areas.
Yeah.
But it is hard. I do go home and think, oh, sometimes I feel really proud. I'm like, oh, that. Which just surprised me. And other things, I'm like, oh gosh, I need to work on that.
She's going to school.
She's going to school soon. I really need to think about that.
Yeah. Do you think that being a teacher has impacted the way you look at Ruby's development, especially knowing early years so well and the best ways to teach other children? And do you kind of, when she's at nursery, think, they're saying she can't do that, but I know she can do it, or vice versa? What are you talking about? She can't do that, but they're seeing it. Do you kind of look at development in a different way?
Yeah, I do, because actually they all show their strengths and weaknesses in their comfortable spaces sometimes better than others. And I think that's really important for anybody to notice. And sometimes as teachers, when you go in and say, but they can do that, you don't want to be that teacher. You really don't. You don't want to be that teacher. It's like, oh, but I know she can do that, because you just don't want to be that parent that you're the teacher, so you expecting them to do that. So I think it's really important to think separately about, this is my child's development. Actually, this is where I'm happy that she's where she is.
Yeah.
I'm happy that she can do it. I know she can do it. Then that's fine. And actually, if nursery tell me that she can do something that I'm surprised, I'm like, great.
Let her crack on.
Yeah, absolutely. Push her. Great.
Have you ever had to kind of challenge some of the things that nursery say to you about development? Have you ever found that it's been different from what you found, or do you think that the way that the early years sector or the setting that she's in has kind of represented her quite well? Do you find?
Yeah, I think Ruby kind of fits in a lot of places anyway. She's very immersion exploration girl. She just get involved, get messy. She would do everything that she wants to do. She's quite strong-willed. But I do think there has been times that I've thought, actually, I don't think she's maybe being challenged enough, or that she's not had as many opportunities as maybe somewhere else when you talk to your friends in other nurseries and they're doing something different. But then you've got to weigh up actually their happiness. I think that's the key thing, isn't it? If your child is happy, and then that helps you, it relieves your pressure, especially like I said with a pressured job.
Yeah.
Just knowing that she's happy in the environment that she's
with
in.
With friends.
Yeah. She's developing, she's moving forward. As long as she's not standing still, I just think, great.
Yeah,
I think,
no, definitely.
And also I think we have to be supportive, like for everybody in the profession, because it is such a hard job. Doesn't matter where you are in early years. I think it's so demanding. It's exhausting physically, emotionally. It's just, and all the resources, everything you got set up and you're planning. I just think I would never go in, I don't think, and be like, actually, you need to be doing this, that and the other.
Yeah.
we should be we should all be here for support. And that's the whole reason why you're doing this, is to help each other.
I think it's like you said, this industry, I think we just sit at the bottom of education, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even though everyone always shouts about how important those first 5 years are. But really, I don't think anyone in the industry really communicates. And I think it always feels like it's a competition. But actually, everyone wants the same thing. Everybody just wants the youngest children in our generation, in our society, to thrive and develop and become incredible adults. And I think it sometimes gets a little bit frustrating because you think, God, we all just want the same thing for these children. It's like, can't we just shout about how amazing everybody is and just let them thrive?
And I think that's actually as well pointing that I think some of my members of staff, sometimes get sick of me, but I'm like, right, come on, play early years, don't forget early years.
Yeah.
It's so important. I think you're right. People do think we're at the bottom, and actually it's not. And that's why I must admit in my staff meetings all the time, I'm like, hang on a minute, this doesn't start at year one, actually.
No.
It starts well before even the start of school, but come on, we need to think about where we can make a difference. And actually that's early years. And a lot of staff are always like, oh, here she goes again. I'm like, yeah, that's me. Yeah,
do you feel like you kind of get a little bit lost in the school as an age group? Do people kind of see it as year one because they sit down and learn?
It's very different.
Because they are learning.
Different. Yeah, exactly. I often get the comments, and it's a bit of tongue-in-cheek now because they'll see where they are. They're like, oh, reception's only playing. That's a whole new.
You try.
Yeah. Come on, have a go. Well, that's the thing, that sometimes they're terrified of coming into reception. They'll stand at the door. They just can't experience it. So I think, because it's two different curriculums, people do see them as separate. Well, they can't fit in because they're finished. We're the end of reception is obviously end of the early years, isn't it?
Profile. Yes. Yeah.
So they think, well, you're done.
They're done.
And actually it's not. And that's what I personally am trying really hard to stop, because we can do so much more.
Definitely. It is like we are trying to just shout really loud from the bottom for somebody to hear us. And then you get all the things come out we get in the news. There's all these stories about early years. It lasts 5 minutes and we get a little bit of a song and shout and then it goes back down and something else comes around and you just think, no, we need to... I could talk for hours about the need of early years. Sorry, I've got off.
I can say too.
It's back to where we were. I do apologise. Went off on one, everybody. So did you find leaving Ruby in a setting was difficult, even though you probably encouraged children to come into reception every day? Like, you're fine, come on. But then leaving Ruby, I bet it was a different kettle of fish.
It was so hard, so much harder than I thought it was going to be. It really was. I thought, like you said, we're always like, come on, off you go. And you want them to be that independent. But at the same time, I left Ruby the first time, obviously, when she was 7 or 8 months old. At that time, I had to go back to work. And it was really hard. And actually, since then, I think I've probably changed my mindset a little bit of being a mum and a teacher. Because actually, it's such a juggling act. And the emotions that you can't explain to somebody who doesn't have a child at home, and juggling their emotions, your emotions, leaving them, the mum guilt. Oh my goodness, the mum guilt. Suddenly, I never realised it until when I had to leave Ruby first. And obviously the long hours, and then you're constantly thinking, like we said earlier, you don't switch off. I find it harder than I thought, really harder than I thought. And I still do sometimes.
How does she go into nursery life? Does she kind of settle? I know now she's, like you say, she goes in, she's happy, she's thriving, but at the beginning, how did she kind of...
I think it was really tricky, actually, because it was COVID as well. It was a case of I couldn't even step through the foot of the door, so you had to leave her, literally hand them over or leave them on the floor to get picked up, and that was heartbreaking, actually, sometimes. She actually settled really well. It was more me, and I think it was... Every time I picked her up, she was happy. She was happy to see me, but she was never really crying when I left her either. She was happy to go to the stand. So she actually did really well. Now, that's not everybody. Everybody's, starts differently, don't they? And you can't control that, unfortunately. But I was really lucky. Ruby actually loved it. She loved coming in. She'd always go in. I was really lucky.
I think you never know, do you? You never know what that drop-off is going to be like. Even now at 3, I can imagine it's some days you think, she's not slept. She's grumpy. She doesn't want to leave me. What am I going to be faced with at the door when we drop her off at 8? I guess it's kind of like an emotional roller coaster.
It really is. And then also you can't help but switch off as you're driving to work, because obviously I drop off on the way to work.
Yeah.
So I'm already starting to get into my work mode, but then she's yabbing around in the background, like keep talking about it, which is lovely, absolutely lovely. And again, going back to the question earlier, I have to remind myself, stop, you've got Ruby, actually enjoy those times, enjoy that talk. You can work and wait a little bit. You can
10 more minutes and then you'll be there.
Exactly, but you're right, it is hard sometimes in the morning when she wants to decide what clothes to wear, and I'm like, but it's for a school, so you can't wear that beautiful pushy dress. No, it's not appropriate. And then it's compromising. I try and use the skills at work that you work with. It doesn't work for your own child, does it?
I can imagine it doesn't. No.
It's like, well, I have no idea what to do.
I've never been around a 3-year-old. Yeah.
Honestly, some days it is like that. I'm like, I do know what I'm doing. I do know my job.
I have to do this. Why are you not listening to me? This is what I do. Oh, bless her. Have you ever felt any pressure from yourself or others to kind of make sure Ruby's development is above or no? Like, well, how do you manage that pressure if there is any?
I think there definitely is. I think as soon as you try, I try to not let the people know that I'm a teacher maybe straight away. So when she starts school, my idea is not to go, I'm a teacher. I'll tell you how she's doing. Because you are pressured. Well, they're expecting that child's going to be all right because they're the teacher. They've got a teacher as a mum. And actually, I've taught children who've had teachers as mums. And actually, it's not always. No. We have to juggle everything. It's not as easy as that. So I think the pressure is there that, they're all right. They've got a teacher's mum. They'll be fine. You don't have to worry about them or expectations of, I know how to do that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I might not have got around to that. And I'm going to go with her interest. If she doesn't want to write, she doesn't want to write right now. It's kind of balancing your parental style, isn't it? And your teaching style and finding that middle ground, I think, on what suits you as a person. So doing this with me could be a completely different conversation to another teacher with a child.
Yeah.
In that they've found a different way of managing that. But I think anyway, when you go in, pressure, whether you're dropping off at nursery, dropping off at school, I think people do look at you. Other teachers look at teachers and go, wow.
She knows.
That. Yeah. She knows what they're doing.
My child knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Do you think there's ever do you put your pressure on yourself or do you feel like it's mainly from outside looking in?
I do put pressure on myself. I think it's a bit of the mixture because you hear about what goes on. I think I really try hard not to push her an academic, and I'm one to be like, just talk. Go around the supermarket. I'm one of those fans, those annoying ones that will talk about everything. Let them have the shopping list. Talk. Where's the bananas? Can you get the bananas for me? What does it start with? Can you find that letter on there? So I do it without kind of doing it, if you know what I mean. So I am putting pressure, I guess, because I want her to learn, but immersing the life as well.
Yeah.
And actually supermarkets are so important to be like, teaching them so many things. But then on the flip, when she wants to do it and you're just in a hurry, then it's about
someone to spell bananas right now. Let's go.
Yeah, bananas is a bad word. She can't spell bananas, by the way.
She's so intelligent.
Yeah, she can't do that.
I think anybody that's ever probably been around Ruby could understand that you do that with her because her vocabulary is, you can have a full-blown conversation with her and nothing gets lost in translation. She's kind of there. So it's like you say, you're doing it without even realising that it's...
And then I feel like I encourage her when I do my information evenings to new parents, I just say to them, I'm not asking you to do that. All I want you to do is talk to your child.
All the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's all. I don't think that's too much to ask.
No.
You talk to them and don't ignore them all the time and talk.
Yeah, it's like, I always say to people when I go into baby rooms, all I want to hear is a running commentary of your day. I don't care if the babies are just looking at you, but if you need to just, when you're making a bottle, what are you doing? 1 scoop, 2 scoop, 3 scoop, under the thing, press, you just constantly talking, because the only way children learn language is by being exposed to language. And when you think, well, I don't know about you, but I think about it in the industry, I think it's so simple. Obviously, how they're going to learn. But if you don't know it, it's really hard to maybe get that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when I do these information evenings, I feel like I'm teaching people to suck eggs, if you like just talk to your child. That's all I want you to do. But then it doesn't come naturally to some people, does it? And also thinking as a teacher and a mum, you've talked all day.
Gotcha.
Then go home and having to talk and do the running commentary with your child. And that's why I said sometimes I have to remind myself, right, come on, you've been preaching all day to do this. You've got maybe another couple of hours to do, then you can switch off.
And you can just sit. Yeah.
And then my husband's like, do you want to talk? No.
No, thank you. No, I've spoken to everybody else today. You can just tomorrow. I think sometimes, I heard a story once. I think it was when I was training, and they said a little boy was going for speech and language, and they sort of said to the mum, so how often do you talk? And she said, oh, well, he never talks back, so I don't really talk to him. And the speech and language therapist, I think it was a speaker when I was doing my course, and they said, and there lied the problem, because this child had never heard any speech because he wasn't talking back. And it just blows my mind sometimes.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't, because it's all about educating parents and adults as well as the children. But sometimes I do have to think, come on, Emily, like not everybody studied it. Not everybody understands child development and how children learn. So, but I find that difficult sometimes. But just
even talk to my husband, I find that difficult.
Yeah,
just tell them. Just explain to her what you're doing. Don't just snap at her. Why are you doing this?
Yeah,
those things.
Talk it through.
And you're right. I just think it's natural.
Yeah,
but actually, it's not to somebody who's not in the industry at all.
Like putting the child's shoes on with them, I could probably make last for 5 minutes because we're just chatting through. What do the shoes look like? What color are they? Which foot does it go on? Can you do the laces? Should do the back? Like, you could just do it. Whereas some people just shoes on, done.
Yeah,
and off they go. So yeah, I think it is interesting, and that's another conversation about parents. But in terms of, like you said, with family time, what have you found works best for you? How do you balance it? Like you said, you don't. Weekends are family, so is that what you kind of stick with?
Yeah, I really, really try hard to do that. I try not to look at emails and things. I really get all my planning done, resources done. So I do stay slightly later on a Friday so that I'm ready for the Monday, so then I can literally just switch off. Yeah, there's no excuse now. This is pure family times. And then I try it in the week to, when I get home, obviously I've picked her up from nursery, I get home, I spend a bit of time with her rather than worried, well, I need to do this job, that job, the other job, you need to get this. That can wait.
Yeah.
It's not actually putting her to bed is so important. Reading her stories to her every single night, singing to her every single night, just talking about her day. And I'm quite lucky, I think I try and fit that in because we've got a bit of a journey because I drop her on the way to work. So she's nearer work than she's home.
Yeah.
Got that car journey, which is a really nice time actually that she can just. She does sometimes say to me, I just need I'm like, okay. And then she get halfway home and she's like, okay, I'm ready to talk.
Oh, it's so good that she can tell you that though. Like she's that boundary, isn't it? I'm not ready to talk yet. I'm like, she's been talking all day. All my teachers at preschool have been talking at me all day and I don't want to do it anymore. Do you think that she enjoys those car journeys? Because you can't look at your emails when you're driving.
Yeah.
To be in that moment.
Yeah, I think she does actually. I think it gives her that time she loves talking about food. She's very food oriented. That's a starting point. And every time, what have you had for breakfast? What have you had for lunch? What have you had for tea? And she gets in the middle, she's like, no, let me start again. And I think she quite likes recounting her day a little bit.
Yeah.
But interestingly, at that time, she's actually doesn't tell me as much. It's very much the everyday kind of things. Whereas bedtime, when she's calm, when she's had a nice bath, and that's when suddenly something comes out about nursery, or she's fallen out with this person, or this person did something that she didn't like. And I know sometimes it is tactic because she knows, and I would sit and listen, and then bedtime gets later and later. But also I think that's important. Okay, I am going to spend time, I'm going to listen to you. I'd listen to my children at school. So
if they wanted to tell you something during the day, you'd make that time to be there and listen. It's got to be the same at home, hasn't it?
It's not easy. And there are some days, I'm saying this like, that's what I do every day. Some days I'm not. I'm only human.
Definitely.
I snap at her. You can't help it sometimes. And that's what I said. Sometimes I have to go, right, breathe. Let's get on. Let's use those.
And what about time with your husband? How do you kind of, I'm going to say fit that in, but I'm actually going to say, no, doesn't happen.
Well, obviously we do.
After Ruth's gone to bed, but do Do you find it important that you two still need to have, because you're with children all the time, and can imagine you just want some adult conversation sometimes?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, Ruby loves going to Pub Park, which is great because that gives us that adult conversation time. She goes off to play in a little park here and have a special fruit shoot. So that's quite nice for a husband time as well.
Yeah.
So you can have that adult conversation, but still feel like you're in a family situation.
Yeah.
And then she pops over. I probably could do with some more, but splitting it in, isn't it? And with gym on top and all those other things, and having time for yourself as well.
Definitely.
All the reading that we all seem to do, we're all a bit martyrs in that, aren't we? We never want to stop learning ourselves. No?
Yeah, it's like I'm just in the middle of something else and it drags on. And I guess I think weekends, like you say, are really important. Being in a school, we're not open. The building's not open. There's no children to worry about. So I'm in this moment and I'm present. So I think it's working out what works best for individual families, isn't it?
Because I know some families that leave early in the week and they spend that time, but then work on a Sunday before work.
Yeah.
And that works for them. I think you've just got to make sure, in my opinion, that you make that time, that split time. I think that's important. It doesn't matter how you do it, but you have family time and you have work time, and you try not to cross them over.
Yeah. So in the school, as early years lead and deputy, what is the part that you find most rewarding? What do you...
The click moment.
Yeah.
That's why I do it. It's that when children achieve something, either they've set out to do or you've kind of given them the challenges to do, and they light up at the face and the appreciation, the fascination of the surprise to themselves. I've done it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And just the questions and the constant, they're sponges at this age, aren't they? They just are questioning all the time. And for me as well, I think they come into me with very little reading and writing, and they leave and they read and write. I just think I'm amazed every time. Every year I'm like, oh my goodness, like...
They did it, yeah.
They've done it. The progress they make in early years doesn't matter whether they're 1 or they're 4. I think each year as an early years is so big, and I think they click all the time. There's never that standstill. It's so quick to get that click moment. I think that's the best things about, most rewarding things about our job is just knowing you've given them the skills to do that. You've helped them there.
It's life skills, isn't it?
Yeah.
They'll take with them.
And I think without telling them how to do it, I mean, I'm working with a few TAs and at the moment, practitioners at the moment, that are very, very motherly, which is great, but actually you need to be teaching them the skills. You need to not do it for them. Give them the opportunities, question them, facilitate, and then that click moment's even better because they've done it
themselves. Yeah.
You've just kind of facilitated around it, give them that and the question. I think for me, that's the biggest thing is when they achieve something that they've set out to do and their little face. And no days are the same as well, and I love that. It's rewarding because you might have a really awful day. It might have not gone well at all. And you think, oh, okay, another day. And the next day, they
just fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you get those clip moments again.
Yeah, I would say every day in early years is the routine is there, but no day is the same. You'll be doing different activities.
Yeah.
I mean, in schools, it's slightly different from sort of an early years setting. There's different children on those sorts of things. And you just, the weather will play a part. Like, what are we doing? Can we do everything that we plan to do? Do we have to change it? And you have to be flexible as well in early years. You can't, if you've got a plan and it doesn't go to plan, you have to just accept that. And sometimes that's really hard.
Especially when you spend a lot of time to get your results.
Yes, and do it.
And I think, you're absolutely right. But actually the child interest, going with that, push that aside, they can be used another day.
Exactly,
It's never going to be wasted, is it?
No. Or if an activity doesn't go the way you thought it was going to, that's okay too. Because the child's got something out of it and they're learning. But that's sometimes got hard, I think, with people coming into the early years. It's like, they didn't do this.
I plan to do that.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
We can do something.
I didn't get any of this stuff done. That's fine, but what did you get done?
Yeah, it's
changing the mindset.
Definitely.
I didn't get that done to actually what did you get done?
Definitely. Yeah. And off the back of that, what have been kind of the challenges that you face, either daily or you've faced that biggest challenges?
I think changes in the legislation, government, I think everyone can agree with that. Like you said, the pressures of understanding play, the arguments not even arguments, professional discussions around play. And like I said, they are just playing. Actually, yes, but I feel like I'm constantly having to argue what the importance of playing.
Just come and watch this child play and I'll tell you exactly what they're getting out of it.
Yeah.
Well, you go first and you tell me what they're not getting out of it, and then I'll tell you what they are getting out of it. And
I keep on talking because there's that many things across all the curriculum. And time as well, isn't it? It's just, especially with having Ruby, you can't fit in as much in the day. You just can't, because you've got to have that balance of family time as well. So, time and government. Full stop. So did we go into that today?
That's another conversation.
Absolutely. And then, I think pressure, you are just playing in there. And I think it's more apparent when you come to school, because early years is very different as reception class to the rest of the school. So when they come down and you're sat on the floor being a pirate one day, and the next day you're in the sandpit like buried, and people just think, well, you're just having a lovely time.
And you're the deputy head. You're thinking,
what's she doing? It is sometimes. It's like, actually, no, I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
And you're doing your job. It's very different. And then the next day, I'm in there watching their lessons going, actually, you're not doing this, that and the other.
We're going to work on this. Do you find that, for me, I always think, when I think about the challenges, like you said, it's time, it's the government. But I always actually find it's adults that create my challenges in early years. There's challenging behaviour from the children. Of course there is. There's different things that you face every day with the children. But actually, the biggest challenges come from the grown-ups, not the children.
Then, like I said before, trying to teach some of the grown-ups how to facilitate and not do is really challenging. Them having the mindset of, I'm going to get involved, I'm going to be a child again. I think sometimes that I need to stand here and watch and observe, and that's me doing my job. No, that's not doing your job, actually. I completely agree. Sometimes it is quite hard to direct the adults to do what they're supposed to be doing, manage what they're doing as well as what you're doing, and model the right way of doing what you'd expect, those expectations of life and in an early years setting.
It's so difficult, isn't it? Do you find, obviously with yourself, how many the early years teachers do you have? And do you have any TAs who aren't qualified in the industry? How does your setup is that?
So there's myself as a teacher, and then I have a TA in the morning and a TA in the afternoon. And depending on specific children's needs, I may have one-to-one. So currently I do have a one-to-one in there as well. I think I've been in the industry a long time, but things have changed quite a lot since they started. So sometimes it's quite hard for me to go, well, yes, that's what you did however many years ago, but this is the new way of doing it now, and this is what I expect to see. I think that's quite challenging sometimes.
Especially when people aren't doing their job badly, you just want to see it a little bit differently. And it's it's reteaching what we know as learning through play is so important to people that maybe don't always see it as a priority. Sometimes.
Sometimes even changing that word. So when I first went into early years, I changed it to those words. It's learning through play. And even the children say that now, it's time for learning through play. So they're there understanding, and anybody that comes in knows actually, we are playing, but we're learning. They don't know how, obviously the children don't know how in-depth they're learning. Even just that vocabulary is quite useful.
Definitely,
But I think with the difference between obviously nursery and school, there is less adults to children because of their age, which can be quite hard to see everything, to make observations of everything. Pressures, obviously, from the teacher doing all the data or the baselines or the tick list stuff, rather than actually getting involved with them, can be a challenge, I think, because sometimes you have to, I don't know, tick the boxes to say you've done it because pressure's higher above and you don't necessarily agree with it. I think everybody has those, don't we? We do things because we don't necessarily agree with them because it's not the time to fight for it and wait for the time to maybe
have those conversations. It's the outside pressures as well, isn't it? I've had conversations with people about sort of early years within schools when Ofsted come and you get 5 minutes and you think, no,
goodness,
why do I not get a whole day like a setting would or a preschool would? Because it's not preschool, it's the year above preschool. But if you were in a separate building on your own with these 30 kids or however many you've got in your class, you'd have 9 till 3 with this offset inspector, but in a school setting, it feels like the rest of it's more important and you're just kind of...
Yeah, completely. And I must admit, my last Ofsted, I'll be dragging them in. I was like, no, you will see what we're doing here. But it's tricky because Ofsted inspectors, school improvement people, they're not, when they come into schools, early, unless you get somebody who's actually passionate about early years, actually been in an early year, they don't understand early years. They're scared of it. They are going back to, what we said earlier. People get to that door and they're like, oh, they're touching me, they're all over you.
I was going to say, it's because the children don't have those boundaries and they're not frightened to, well, if we've got nice, obviously, social children that want to get involved and independent, they will go and talk to someone who walks into the room because it's their safe space. They feel comfortable to do it. So when other teachers or an inspector or someone walks in, it is a bit like, oh, there's all these kids over me, what do I do? And it kind of puts them off.
I did have one head before that would not step foot. He'd knock on the door and I'm way out and come in and collar you out. And it's like, oh no. And by the end of it though, I mean, I again thought that's just me. Yeah. I forced him in, and actually it's about not being scared and actually getting people into early years. And I'm doing that a lot with my subject leaders at the moment in other areas, like we said. Actually, no, you will. Non-negotiable, you're going to spend at least some of your subject leader time in early years to actually see it in action here, because that's where it starts.
Definitely. I think it's, like we said, pushing for these little children and these little people that we're creating and helping to develop, that no, they've got a voice and it's not as loud as ours, so we will do it for them. And then it's always the loud, opinionated people in early years, I feel, but I think it's the best way.
I don't think, and everybody would say that. I think everyone would fight for early years because we're so passionate about it, aren't we?
Definitely. Did you always know you wanted to be in education?
No, not at all. If I'm being brutally honest, I was actually going to be an RES pilot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Until I wrote off my car on the way to the
nice.
interview.
Brilliant. That was like the universe, like, don't do it. Don't do it.
So at that point, I was like, right, what else can I do? What else am I good at? And I've always kind of been in leadership kind of roles growing up with sports teams and St John Ambulance and things like that. So I thought, actually, I like having that. And why not? And let's learn why. And now I wouldn't look back. I actually don't know what I would do. Yes, it's stressful. Yes, it's demanding. Yes, it eats up your whole life in certain ways. Just thinking, you see something in the shop and you go, that would be amazing.
I'll
have that for early years in your classroom. But actually, I don't know what more I'd do.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I think I don't think I'm good at anything else now. I'm like, oh, don't talk about development. That would be it. I think, it's a very big U-turn, that though, from...
Yeah, very big. I don't know. I couldn't pinpoint the moment that it happened, to be fair.
Just happened.
It happened, yeah.
And then it was just the right...
And then it's just gone on for however many years now and just...
just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you would ever sort of step away from early years and go into different age groups, or do you think early years is
I did it the other way, really. I started older and come down to early years, and now, no, I don't want to leave it. I don't want to leave it at all. I think it would be a big jump to move out of it now. I think
you'd have the year fives in the sandpit, and
I think they'd be worried. Actually, what would get them doing? So we're doing science, because I promised. Yeah. It's amazing, actually, asking the year fives if they want to come and spend some time in your reception. Oh my gosh, they're down here like
they do,
a shot. So I think my heads probably wouldn't let me anywhere else.
You done.
Yeah.
And then my final question that I've been asking everyone, what was your favourite childhood memory, as we are talking all things early years?
Mine would be going down to the bottom of where I lived and playing in the woods, jumping over the stream, climbing the trees. And I mean, that proves I'm in forest school now, we're doing forest school. It kind of, that's where I loved it when a child. You'd play Kirby and then you'd walk down the bottom. We'd had this, I can absolutely vision it, this stream that went down the bottom to the big lake. And well, it's not even that big, but it was big when I was a child when I'm thinking about it. And just getting muddy and coming back looking a state, and loved it.
just being outdoors and exploring and being a child.
Being on the bikes as well, being my other one, riding around, bikes, outdoors, And I think, and I'll try really hard to make sure we incorporate that, because then sometimes that can be lost, can't it? I think that's just because of my passion. But yeah, 100%. I even remember a teddy bear's picnic down the bottom from school where we did that in where we lived, down the bottom in the stream, and a child actually fell into the stream. It was very funny.
The paperwork.
I know, well, at that time, I think it was a reception at the time. So, I didn't care.
I think it's funny what you remember from childhood, isn't it? And then how it kind of, like you said, now Forest School is something you really want to incorporate because of that, those happy memories of being outside. I mean, if you'd fallen out of a tree, maybe Forest School wouldn't have been the route that you took. But I think there is such a link, and that's why creating such happy memories in early years is really, really important.
Yeah, so important. And actually, when you look back and ask little children who are your favourite teachers, a lot of them actually remember the early years teachers.
Definitely. Because they make such an impact in such a small, short space of time when they're still developing and learning all these amazing things. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I've been really interested, and I think there's probably 100 more topics we can cover rather than just parenthood and being a teacher. So thank you so much.
No, thank you.
And thank you for listening, everybody. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.